Many things about the Citadel indicate that making the interior spaces functional for like bipedal humanoids was almost an afterthought. To me, the many stairs, walkways, railings and bridges seem hastily or even poorly constructed. I don't know if this was an intentional design to further promote the idea of alienness, but to me it works very well and feels very legitimate. The light bridges and the use of the energy sockets, don't know the official term for those things. Well, I call them energy sockets. They were both wonderful additions and discoveries for Episode 1. In Half-Life 2 we saw many instances of the combined force fields, but to see them now, to see these same fields used in such a practical way was really delightful. We received only the briefest glimpses of Stalkers in Half-Life 2. I don't know whether I'm excited or horrified to see their roles expanded in Episode 1. I mean, to realize they were once human beings is a terrifying prospect. They're certainly a metaphor for the sheer, unfeeling, uncompromising brutality of the Combine, and they're an excellent catalyst to, I think, excite the player's outrage towards this enemy. They're such pathetic creatures, and nowhere, I think, is this more obvious than to glimpse them diligently but vainly attempting to maintain the shattered Citadel. Perhaps the greatest role in Episode 1 is simply providing a visible, touchable, living contrast between the freedom being so desperately fought for and the defeat so nightmarishly feared. I don't know about anyone else, but when Alex sent me on the mission to retrieve a roller mine, and then I crawled through this passage, my first instinct was to take this destroyed scanner and then try to push the body of that dead stalker over the precipice there. And it takes a bit of doing, but you can get it. Oh, there he goes. And then, of course, throw the scanner in behind him as well. Despite the fact that there's obviously a button you push at this point to get access to the mines that are backed up in the tube, I remember being frustrated I couldn't grab these ones, which were obviously coming down through that tube and falling out through an opening in the bottom. I thought that was... it's like putting a cookie just out of reach. It took me a few replays to understand what Alex was saying right here, at the point where she mentions that the soldiers are too busy trying to escape the Citadel to worry about us. There's a big explosion. It makes it difficult to hear. But I got the gist of it. I think this is the first point where you really, really grasp how extremely dangerous it is, life-threatening in fact, to just be in the Citadel, where you have to make a dash across the bridge through this vortex without being vaporized. So of course you make a dash for it, then you turn around and you watch Alex do the same, and at first it looks like her timing is going to be a little bit off, but then she barely skims through, and of course we're delighted, everybody's happy to be alive. As soon as I turned the corner and saw the red light ahead, along with the sudden change in music and mood, I knew things were going to get pear-shaped really quickly, or at least had the feeling of that. I don't know what you call this area, but I refer to it as the advisor chamber. You can see the advisors, or perhaps the advisors' offspring's pods, down below in the depths of the chamber, and each one with the barely discernible Combine insignia on top of the pods. I'd just like to briefly mention a point of fascination I have with what I call the Combine corporate identity, and by that I specifically mean this logo. It's very abstract and resembles in style much of the Combine architecture. To me, the circle contained within the sharp-edged horseshoe shape suggests domination and control, or perhaps I'm just simply predisposed to think of that because of playing the game. It's funny, a general rule of thumb in graphic design, and specifically corporate logo design, is that the greater the client's budget and the more they can reproduce their logo in the media for market recognition, the more abstract you can allow the logo to become. In the case of the Combine, they have a rather large public relations budget, considering they now completely control all of the Earth's media. At this point we see Alex realizing that we have simply been watching a few hours old video of Dr. Breen speaking with the advisor at the end of Half-Life 2. Then, of course, the advisor itself, and I'm assuming this is like a genderless creature, realizes Alex has hacked into their mainframe and sees Gordon and Alex in the advisor chamber. Twice in Half-Life 2 we saw Dr. Breen talking to this ghastly lava-like being, and I was hoping so much in that game that we would learn more about what this creature was, what its origins were, its intent, purpose, or even what it was called. Of course, the best bit is right here when Alex taps the side of the pod and the creature inside launches its, what I can only call its acute neurological impairment attack, or ANIA, ANIA for short. Oh my god, it makes you wonder about the kind of world you're living in. I do hope to find out a lot more about these creatures in episode 2, and from what was said in the commentary, it seems like this may very well be the case. Well, I feel quite certain that I was not the only one who bounced off the walls and did cartwheels and jumped around the apartment with excitement over the hasty return of the blue gravity gun. Who can deny the desire for a device of such staggering power, lethality, and amusement? It's a real cultural icon. For instance, if you do a Yahoo internet search for blue gravity gun, you'll come up with nearly 1.2 million hits. On the other hand, if you do a web search for Sudan famine, you'll come up with less than 800,000. My, that really says something, doesn't it? Alex even seems quite excited at the prospect of Gordon having the blue gravity gun, and really, how could she not be? They are so outnumbered, and the task to stabilize the core at this point must seem so hopeless that the presence of the blue gravity gun must seem like a gift from above with its brutal, destructive power. I think the ability to not only destroy your enemies with what looks like a powerful electrical shock, knock them down and grab them from across the room, and then do horrible, humiliating things with their dead bodies, or even use their dead bodies as weapons. I think all of that appeals to something very primal deep down inside all of us. At least I sincerely hope that it's deep down. I felt that when the blue gravity gun was first acquired, it would have been the ideal occasion for Gordon to have a final epic showdown with the G-Man, which, as you can see here, he would shock repeatedly in the crotch area until he burst into flames, and then would carry away his carcass to use as a weapon against the Combine. But then I thought that that doesn't really contribute to the linearity of the story, so maybe that's not a good idea. So we make our way to the reactor core at long last. It's a relief, because the first time you play through it seems like it takes ages to get there. The core logo on the door looks vaguely like a cross between the international symbol for radiation and a swastika. Don't know if that was intended or not. There's a real sense of urgency as you approach the control room with the flashing red lights and alarms and the dead soldiers, and I wondered at first if there was going to be like a clock that I had to race in order to contain the reaction before it exploded and consumed City 17 in a hellish apocalypse, but I was glad to see that I could take my time shutting the thing down. Well, the shutters open, and then you're presented with your first view of the core, bathed in this brilliant, ethereal bluish light. The magnitude of both the reaction and the reactor chamber leave little doubt at this point that this is indeed the very heart of the Citadel. As you walk into the reactor chamber itself, I think you can't help but simply be overawed by what I feel is simply the most beautiful interior space in any of the Half-Life incarnations. The light is stunning, the Geiger counter crackles its disapproval, and the reaction pulsates to the perfectly composed music, which actually reminds me a bit of Brian Eno. It must have taken an enormous amount of effort to create this chamber, but the effect is really astonishing. A job very well done. In fact, it was a bit of a conundrum for me, because I found it difficult to believe that the Combine could create something this beautiful. Right, I'm sure I'm not the only one who picks up the deceased stalker and fires them into the reaction to be vaporized. The shaft of energy and or light is just really stunning. People are like bowerbirds. They like things that are blue. I'm no exception. Actually, I guess that only applies to blue bowerbirds.